Chicago, who was here with us 50 years ago in 1972 over at the National Black Political Convention as a delegate. He's going to pour libation for us. We got our brother Kwame playing the drums for us out of Chicago. Kwame and Steve Cobb doing the percussion, and his daughter. So let's go forward with these libations. And we need everybody to, if you can, please respect the libation and with quietness. You can have plenty of time to talk. Okay, right on.
Okay, Africans in America, let's get serious. Libation is an ancient African ritual of remembrance, honor, respect, and emulation. My name is Mansong Sulabali, and I'm one of many knowledge gangsters, like our brother Parvinar Rasuli, right here. Let's give him a strong black hand. And a strong black hand for everybody involved with this whole project of giving our ancestor, our grandcestor, El Hajj Malik El Shabazz, rightful recognition here in Gary, Indiana, after a long struggle. So, strong black hand for Parvinar and all the people in his organization and the other organizations that made this day possible. Before, or as a part of Libation, Mungu Asifiwe. That is Kiswahili on the east coast of Africa, Kenya, Tanzania. Mungu, M-U-N-G-U, means God. Asifiwe means be praised. So y'all just said God be praised. Hey, we woke up this morning, y'all. We must not take that lightly. Repeat after me, please. Mwari. Mwari Wakanaka. Mwari is my Shona for my people in Zimbabwe. They look just like us. And Mwari means God. Wakanaka is great. Say with me, please. Mochuba. Mochuba Oludumare. Mochuba means praise, and Oludumare, God. Say with me, please. Allah. Allahu Akbar. That is Arabic for God is great. And finally, hallelujah. Hallelujah. Ain't no why in that, y'all. Mali was correct. God. K-A-S is God. So you just said praise or thank God. Now for the libation. As I said, it's an ancient African ritual of honor, remembrance. We must remember these people, particularly the activist people. And you got them right there in your family. You may not have wrote a book or anything like that, but they was a bridge over troubled waters for you. So, I'm going to begin with the activist people. And when I say for the spiritual memory of, we pour and say, y'all collectively say libation. Y'all got that? For the spiritual memory of Queen Nzinga, Samari Touré of Guinea, and Shaka Zulu of South Africa, we pour and say, those people, those leaders back in the day on the continent made a way for us. They fought the oppressor and the colonizer. For the spiritual memory of Osajifo, Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, President Sekou Touré, Sister Winnie Mandela, Sister Miriam Makeba, Nani, and a host of other tough sisters who made a way for us. We pour and say, for the spiritual memory of Nat Turner, Denmark Beasley, Aramita Harriet Tubman, who made a way for us. We pour and say, for the Honorable for the people in those regions. We pour and say, for Sister Fannie Lou Hamer of Mississippi, Ida B. Wells, Nina Simone, we can name them all day, y'all. He made a way for us. We pour and say, for L. Hodge, Shabazz, Malcolm X, Omar Wale, Chairman Fred Hampton Sr., Sister Pat Hill of the Afro-American Police League of Chicago. We have so many. Dr. Bobby Wright, the psychologist. Jacob Carruthers, Dr. John Henry Clark, Dr. Shashi McIntyre, and a host of other scholars, too numerous to name. We pour and say, Ashe, Ashe, Ashe,
Right on, Brother Banson. Y'all, let's give Brother Banson some love. Brother Kwame and his daughter Zenzele some love. And yourself some love. So, again, this process has been a minute. I don't know if it was 1999 or 2000. We were sitting in my house, and so we said, we got streets named appropriately after Dr. King all around this country, small towns, big cities, named in honor of Dr. King appropriately. And we said we got to start honoring Malcolm here. We got some extreme issues, and like Malcolm would say, we have extreme issues we call for extreme solutions. And so as we were doing the petition, this one brother was not a little bit out of law school, but I said, bro, look at this petition, man, you got to edit this petition. You got to check it out. So we checked it out, made sure it was cool, and then here we are now, 4,000 signatures later, 22 years later, and Malcolm X Drive is here. And right now, he's the deputy mayor of the city. He's coming to give greetings from his brother Trent McCain.
Thank you very much, Pavana. It's so good to be here after 23 years. The longer the germination, the sweeter the fruit. Let me tell you what Malcolm X means to me. When I grew up, well, my brother and I, we were raised by a single mom, much like Malcolm X. We didn't have a father in the house. When I turned 15 years old, my brother bought me a book. He didn't buy me a blunt. He bought me a book that changed my life forever. And that was the autobiography of Malcolm X. As a 15-year-old, I read that book. I read about how on May 19th, 1925, he was born in Omaha, Nebraska. I read about how in that 8th grade class, Mr. Ostrowski asked him to stay after class. Mr. Ostrowski asked young Malcolm Little, what do you want to be when you grow up? And Malcolm said, I want to be a lawyer. Mr. Ostrowski said, that's an unrealistic goal for a nigga, to be a lawyer. You're good with your hands. People like you. You should be a carpenter. You will get plenty of work. I would hire you. Malcolm X walked out that classroom as an 8th grader and never walked into another classroom again. He moved to Roxbury, Massachusetts, and then to Harlem, got into a life of crime, spent 7 years in prison, but he came out a new man, a new person, a new human. Malcolm X wanted to be a lawyer, but he did not have that opportunity. On May 19th, 2002, I feel personally that I fulfilled Malcolm X's dream, because that was the day I graduated from law school, on his birthday. May 19th, 2002. On May 19th, 2003, I was sworn into my second state to practice law, Indiana. That's no coincidence.
All right.
That's Malcolm X in us. If you all recall the end of the Malcolm X movie in 1992, Spike Lee joint. What did everybody tell you at the end? I am Malcolm X. Let me hear you all say it. I am Malcolm X. Malcolm is quoted saying a lot of great things. I listen to his words in my mind, in my heart, in my soul every day. But one thing, as a father of three, that I keep close to my heart is Malcolm X said that if you have been convinced that you have never done anything, you will never do anything. We now have to shine as examples like Malcolm X shone for us. When we unveil this street name, those young boys and young girls can look up that and say, Mom and Dad, who is Malcolm X? And they can be educated as to who he was. He never stepped foot in the city of Gary, but he delivered all of us because of his sacrifices. He taught us how to be proud, to stand up like men and women, and get what we deserve by any means necessary. Thank you, Brother Quabanon. This has been a journey. I had a lot more hair back when it started. But I thank you all and show you that the fight is never over.
Hold on, Brother Trick. Give it up for the deputy mayor, y'all. You're talking about he had a whole lot of hair. I had no hair, dreadlocks, and this again. So, appreciate those greetings from the city. We also got the state senator here with us. He's going to share a few words. He's taking care of making sure we got the signs along the state streets and also along the highway. Senator Eddie Melton.
What's up, Gary? As we were paying homage and we were going in libation, the one thing that stood out to me when he said, Allah Akbar, God is the greatest. And when I stand here and look around, and we talk about God as being great, we are all a reflection of God. God created us individually, uniquely. So when we talk about the life and legacy of Malcolm X, it's not just the life of the movie that we're singing, and I think that movie was a motivation for us. But it opened our eyes to even dig deeper and learn more about him as a man. And the evolution of Malcolm X and his thinking as it came to not just our people and our culture, but the entire world. And I think that's where we are today. So I want to just take this moment. I want to thank the administration. I want to thank all of the council members and everyone all of the previous council members and all of the committee members that had worked tirelessly and did not give up. Think about this, over 20 plus years to get to this day. That was persistence and that was diligence. So us as a community, we have a responsibility now. As we see the children growing up that may not know the history, that may not know the background of Malcolm X, Medgar Evers, Fannie Lou Hamer, and the list goes on. We have an obligation and a responsibility to teach this. And this sign is a marker and a reminder for us to do just that. So again, I want to commend Brother Promenade and the entire committee for having this day and working so tirelessly. So if you could join me in thanking everybody that was responsible for this. Thank you.
Hold on, Senator. Give it up for the senator, y'all. When we first started this process, it was a serious process, but one of the things we did was we went to the council. Of course, you had to go to the council, and I see Councilman Hughes, one of our strongest supporters, when we first kicked this off. Him, Councilman Cherry, Councilman Carolyn Rogers, who's no longer with us. All of them wrote letters. Even the current mayor, Jerome Prince, wrote a letter in support of this. So those were the 4 councilmen back in the day that were strongly supporting this initiative before we got into all that struggle. But our current councilmen and council also helped get this through recently after the struggle. I see some of them right here, right now. I see Linda Barnes Caldwell, our brother Brewer over there. But our council president is Brother William Godwin. He's going to speak for the council. Here's Brother Godwin.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Corbetta, and good afternoon to Gary. Good afternoon to everyone. Today is a day that is long overdue, but we're glad that it is here. Malcolm X is a powerful figure in our history, in our culture, and in our world. There is no better place than in Gary, Indiana, with our population, our history, our story, than to celebrate a man of the caliber of Malcolm X. He once said, anytime you have to beg someone to make you free or to set you free, you'll never be free. Freedom is something you have to do for yourselves. And that is something that we continue to do in Gary, Indiana, to make ourselves free. I certainly want to recognize my colleagues who are here. Councilman at Large, Ron Brewer, who's over here. Give him a hand. Yeah. The council person for this district, you know I'm going to stay out of trouble. The 5th District Councilwoman, Linda Barnes Caldwell. Give her a hand. See the councilman of the 2nd District and our incoming Calumet Township Assessor, Cozy Weatherspoon. Give him a hand. We also have the Vice President of our council and 4th District, Councilwoman Ty Atkins. Give her a hand. And I also see Councilwoman of the 3rd District, Mary Brown. Give her a hand. I'm sure they join me in recognizing that Malcolm X stood and stands for human rights. And every day in the work that we do, we want to continue to promote human rights in addition to civil rights. I am because we are. I am because we are. That's the message of today. Let us never forget the work of Malcolm X. And let's give a big round of applause, because he's been working very hard, to Mr. Corbetta Razzulli. Give him a round of applause. Thank you so much.
Appreciate you, Councilman. All right, that's it for applause for this brother. So it's for the people. 4,000 people signed this petition. 4,000 people. That's crazy. I'll tell the story. Me and G. Barilli and others, we would go around with these petitions, and I would say we asked 10 people to sign a petition in Gary. 8 of them signed it right away, no question. Right away. One person wasn't down with it, so we didn't really mess with them at all. The next person be on paper or something, so they didn't want to put their address out there. But the people were in strong support of this street being named in honor of our dear brother. This brother's gonna come up, and this is a bad brother. Let me stop talking about how bad he is before he gets up here and does his thing. But poet, have been knowing him since the poetry days over in Chicago. Saw him last week at the Gary Black International Film Festival, the 12th annual. Y'all got to start supporting that and checking that out. It's a beautiful program that we have here in Gary. One of the highlights, one of the monuments to Gary is that film fest, just like Malcolm X Drive will be. But let's bring up Brother Phenom out of Chicago to share a message with the people.
Thank you, praise God. How y'all doing? My name is Phenom, and I'm a weapon of mass construction. I'm a weapon of mass construction. I'm unapologetically in love with God and my people. And I also know who I am. I saw those visuals of Snick and our people going to those restaurants to get hit in the face with certain things just because we brown, we can't go into the restaurant. But why were they doing that? So that the babies can be free. And I realize I'm the baby. And I have a responsibility. Can I get that rhythm? Come on, we gotta warm up. I know we tropical people. We kind of spread out together, but I mean, that's okay. That's all right. Let me test y'all. Everybody say, oh yeah. Oh, yeah. Come on, man. I thought this was Africans. This the Malcolm X thing, ain't it? Everybody say, oh yeah. Say, oh yeah. Say, oh yeah. Say, oh yeah. I was blessed enough to go to Iraq for 11 days as an artist, diplomat. And I wanted to see the difference between Iraq and Chirac, like for real. The difference is they remember who they are. One of the most important things that we need to teach our children is to remember. That's the one thing that transcends generations, is the memory. Everybody say, oh yeah. Oh, yeah. Say, all right. All right. RBG in the dome, 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 drop. RBG in the dome, drop. Anybody know about the red, black, and green? Let's see. R is for the life in me. B is for the fight in me. G is for the seeds that we plant so decisively. Yo, it's bigger than a gang, Joe. It's larger than the mafia. And it's anti-master, and it's anti-my-officer. Excuse me, Mr. Officer, but this flag means that only God's the boss of you. We rock it cause we're proud of it, not because it's popular. Don't let me catch your merchandising when you see it popping up. The only thing here means it's time for us to lock it up. Neutron against the younger, oh, they trying to box us up. Neutron against stronger, oh, they trying to box us up. They trying to box us up. They like, they wondering. How you gonna be treated as a slave and come back and be so paid yo all these years later? How you gonna get stripped of your name and come back and just claim this 1,000 years later? How you gonna get stripped of your language, come back and tell the same truth 1,000 years later? How you gonna get hit by cocaine and get clocked out of cat game? It'll be that much greater. Why? RBG in the dome, RBG in the dome, RBG in the dome, drop. RBG in the dome, RBG in the dome, RBG in the dome. I feel the blood of Malcolm X in my body. I feel the blood of Malcolm X. Hey, I feel the blood of Malcolm X in my body. Ready by any means necessary. A rebel with a mic, missionary, the mercenary. My flows is sanitary, flows is sanitary. If they ain't down for change, your feelings is secondary. I hope y'all enter the sessions to remember. Y'all know what this is. This is a platform for them kids. That's why we sitting right now. That's why we looking at the banner. And we understand we are one people. They call it Gary, Indiana. I know we from different places and we got different faces. But you know Malcolm X, he permeated different cracks in different spaces. Now we touching what's cool. Yeah, what's cool is the rule. That we are the kings and the queens, and we understand that we build our own schools. My name is Phenom. Understand, I'm a musical bomb. Education is my real elevation, and I'm about to let it go, so everybody stay calm. This coming from my heart. Malcolm X was the art. This is a race, but black is the race for God, and we do this from the start, y'all. That's my name, man. Phenom, I love y'all. Say, I am the memory. I am freedom. I am Malcolm X.
All right, y'all. I can do better than that for Brother Phenom. Right on.
Politics. And then I remember in 5th grade when Malcolm X lost his life, and I remember how it affected our family. And so from then on, we were always encouraged to be a part of something that's pushing black people forward. And I look around and I see all of you amazing people. All these people who were alive when he was alive. All these people. And Black Lives Matter has been working on various projects for the last 7 years. We've done things in the community. And this is one of the things that we support wholeheartedly.
Yes, oh yeah, by the way, yeah, all three of us, Southern University. He got an Irish shirt on.
Oh, Chuck, ready. Assalamu alaikum to all my Muslim brothers and sisters. Before I say anything, I got to salute my brother Paul Quabbin. We go way back. Because he's an agitator to the core, he's an activist to the core, and he kept the fire burning over the years. I was one of the ones instrumental in I guess, light the fire. But without this brother constantly pissing people off at the council and keeping it before them, and I'm sure it was others, but I know for certain this brother. So I got to salute you for certain. And there were others, Trent, Adi, Todd, you all did your things behind the scenes. So I salute you. I'm going to be quick. The same brother that put the autobiography of Malcolm X in the hands of his real brother, his blood brother, he also put it in my hands. In '90, I was, as Kwabena said, we all from Southern University. And at that time, I was lost, completely lost, out in the streets doing whatever. But I was still, you know, in school trying to be a student. And I remember we were approaching the Christmas break. Of course, most students go home for Christmas. And I decided to, you know, stay down there because I just needed to clear my mind and try to get some things right. And this brother came to me. He said, man, I heard you're going to be down here for the Christmas break. You're not going home. I said, yeah. He said, man, since you're going to be down here, take this book and read. It's the autobiography of Malcolm X. I said, man, I don't want to read no book about Malcolm. So completely lost. If anybody knows this brother, he's very persistent. He says, brother, I assure you, if you read this book, it's going to change your life. I said, all right, man. And I took it, but I had no intention of reading the book. So Christmas holiday came. Of course, everybody went home. It was like crickets in the city. So I'm sitting in my apartment. The book is on the table, so I picked it up. And I tell you, I got so consumed with the book. When I looked up, 6 hours had passed. And I didn't even know it. I was just that consumed. So I didn't really want to put the book down, but my eyes were tired. So I said, okay, I'll pick it up tomorrow. So the next day, I picked the book up again. And I read the book all day and didn't even recognize the time. But something started changing in me, and I didn't know what it was. I really did not know what it was. Just something was different. So I put the book down the third day, picked it up and finished it. And I can remember sitting on my couch, just kind of reflecting on the words that Malcolm, his life, and the words, you know, of his life, and how it translated into a completely different human being, a completely different person. And I started looking at some of the things that I was doing and how it was very similar to Malcolm's life. And I looked at how he transformed his life, and I realized I could do the same thing. At that time, we had phone books and beepers. Didn't have cell phones. I remember looking in a phone book for a black bookstore in Baton Rouge. And the one bookstore that came up was on Government Street. I went to that bookstore the next day, and I said, look, I'm hungry, I'm thirsty, and I don't know what to read. And she pointed at me, she said, well, what are you interested in? I said, I don't know. And she gave me 2 books, and from that day forward, I've been reading ever since. Feeding his thirst and his hunger for more information and more knowledge. So that's my transformation and how Malcolm transformed me. So as I told Kwabena, as I told my brother Adi, this is a victory. This is a small victory, but no less a victory. And we should celebrate. All right. But let's keep our boots strapped on tight because we're still at war. We see what's happening in Haiti right now. The U.S. military is sending troops over there. It's an uprising. We see U.S. military expanding all throughout Africa. So we know what's coming. So let's not get comfortable. Let's celebrate the moment. And come Monday, let's get back on business.
AG, give it up for Brother Kalanji, Brother AG. Last time I was in the Mama Land, we were there together. So, man, again, SU Love. Also, Gary, AG's Baba, again, was the one who got me going with this garden. I got my...
Good. You got to say it loud so they can hear you all the way from Mississippi to Madagascar. I want to begin by quoting the Bible in the book of John, chapter 15, verse 13. Scripture says that no love is greater than when you give your life for a friend. I know I only have a few minutes, but I just got to break that scripture down. No love is greater than when you give your life for a friend. I'm not here to quote or quibble or quarrel with scripture, but possibly what's greater than to give your life for a friend is to give your life for people and you didn't even know their names. You see, Malcolm and Martin, they gave their lives for us and they didn't know our names. Medgar, he gave our lives for us and he didn't know our names. Patrice Lumumba, Augusto Sandino, Emiliano Zapata, Steve Biko, Fred Hampton, they gave their lives for us and they didn't even know our names. I'm here to say that martyrdom is not the end, it's the beginning. Those who assassinated Malcolm X on February 21st, 1965, you wasted your bullets. Don't shoot. You cannot kill ideas. Those who orchestrated, who paid for the bullets and the guns to kill Malcolm X, you wasted your money. Those who created the atmosphere that was right to assassinate Malcolm X, you wasted your time. Don't shoot. You cannot kill ideas. I'm going to briefly go through the revolution of Brother Malcolm. Malcolm X grew up in a Marcus Garvey household. He grew up in a Marcus Garvey household. When we unveiled the street side of Malcolm X, Marcus Garvey's fingerprints are all over it. At the age of 6, his father was murdered. Malcolm X said when the Klan hit him over the back of the head, meaning Earl Little, and they placed his body on the railroad track, his body was almost cut in two. But Malcolm X said his father was able to survive several hours after that. He said they don't make Negroes like that anymore. Malcolm X, growing up in a single-parent household with 8 siblings and a single mother during the so-called Great Depression, Malcolm X said we were so poor that we eat a whole lot of a donut. He thought not for sale was a brand name. Because of the pressure of the Great Depression, Malcolm X's mother had a nervous breakdown and was committed to an insane asylum for several years. Malcolm X's 8 brothers, they were parceled out, placed in foster care. Malcolm still flourished. He was the class president. He made straight A's, but like my brother said, Mr. Ostrowski, his teacher broke his heart. See, let me tell you about teachers. Teachers can make you, am I right, Leneva, or they can break you. See, Malcolm's teacher was a cheater that day. The same letters that spell teach also spells cheat. Either we are teachers of children or we are cheaters of children. Malcolm X in the 8th grade, he dropped out of school. And when you drop out of school, you drop into an underworld that is no joke. Malcolm X was a hustler, a pimp, a dope dealer, a dope user. But when he went to prison, Malcolm X found freedom. Malcolm X is the epitome of freedom. As a matter of fact, freedom really means free from being dumb. That's the meaning of freedom. Malcolm X went into prison not wearing glasses. He came out of prison wearing glasses. Malcolm X said that 10 prison guards and the warden could not drive me out of those books. Malcolm X, while serving his time, allowed his time to serve him. He joined the debate team. He debated against Ivy League schools and whipped them. Coming out of prison, Malcolm X joined the Nation of Islam. See, Malcolm X understood to be a fisher of men. We have to be fishers of men and women. See, Malcolm X was a sinner, but I believe that the worst sinners become the greatest saints. And so when Malcolm X understood the street, he understood the gutter, he understood the gutter butter of the underworld, and he was able to recruit people just like him. Malcolm X kept evolving, kept growing. Malcolm X left the Nation of Islam and he traveled to Mecca. Let me say this right quick. There's only one race, and that is the human race. We all bleed red, we all urinate yellow, we all defecate brown. Malcolm X said, I ate from the same dish, I drank from the same cup, I slept on the same rugs with white people with the blondest of blonde hair and the bluest of blue eyes, but they treated me like a brother. Malcolm X traveled to 14 different countries in Africa, and he met with 11 heads of states. Let me just say this right quick. That ruffled some feathers in the CIA headquarters. That ruffled some feathers at the White House. How could this ex-convict, Detroit Red, become so powerful that he's able to meet with heads of states? When Malcolm X was in Cairo, he was almost fatally poisoned, and that's when he said, it's bigger than the Nation of Islam. I'm going to stop saying it's the Nation of Islam. I know what they can do, and I know what they cannot do, because I trained them. Malcolm X understood the power of international diplomacy. When Malcolm came back in 1965, Malcolm knew he was going to die. There was an interview by Mike Wallace, and Malcolm X, with a smile on his face, says, I'm a dead man already. You see, Malcolm said, never cross a man who's not afraid to die. See, we only die once, but fear can kill you over and over and over. Malcolm understood to conquer the fear of death is the beginning of life. As I sit down, I have to tell you personally what Malcolm X means to me. I was born in September of 1965. I was in my womb on February 21st, 1965, when Malcolm X was physically assassinated. But no one next to Jesus the Christ has influenced me more than Malcolm. See, Malcolm told you in his autobiography, let me just say this right quick. Please, we gotta read. We have to read more. I had a break-in in my house about 15 years ago. I cashed a $3,000 check. I stuck it in an envelope. I stuck it in a book. When the people broke in my house, they took the laptop, they took the Xbox, they took the little jewelry of my ex-wife, but they did not get the $3,000. Why? Because it was in a book. We need to read the autobiography of Malcolm X. Because Malcolm X says some of the greatest leaders were never recognized until they were safely put in the ground. We are Malcolm X. Thank you. There you go, brother.
Hold on, Brother Adiami. Appreciate you, man. Give it up one more time for Brother Adiami. God became. So, Moya, my brother G. Barilli's looking at me. He's been with me walking the streets. And Achilles not looking right now, but we got to get Moya out here. You said 1 minute? He don't need, that's all he needs is that. And they looking at me, 1 minute. Okay, my brother G. Barilli.
I want to thank everybody for coming out, especially thank Quabetta. I remember it was about 2 decades ago, we was from the Zone Commission, and they offered us an honorarium, and Quabetta said no. Then 10 years later, the then mayor offered us an honorarium. Quabetta said no. Look at this now. Me and Quabetta, let's give it up for him. With that being said, it took us 20-some years for this, right? We got a lot of the streets to rename. I don't know if we had 40 years per street. We on that nuclear clock. But I want to thank everybody for coming out. It's getting cold. And so it's, come on, Quabetta, let's it up, right?
Appreciate you, Brother G. So let's get this culture here. Let's get this this African dance, Moya, cultural arts, and drummers and dancers. Let's take it away, y'all. Let's enjoy. Let's welcome them from Chicago and let's enjoy this. 8 minutes is gonna make it happen. On this block, it's like right in the middle of the street, Malcolm X Drive, where it crosses over. It's Virginia Street at the steel mill. It changes to Ellis right there at the stop sign over here. And right there where straightens out, it's Georgia Street as of yesterday. Now all that'll be Malcolm X Drive. So Malcolm X Drive is one of 2 streets in Gary that runs throughout the city all the way north and south. The other is that broad way to get to and fro. And the other street that runs north and south throughout the city is now Malcolm X Drive. And the reason why we had some options of where we would do the program, you know, we had that nice grassy area, but the reality of some of the situations that we're facing in this community is right here. This school was named after George Washington Carver. Matter of fact, CJ, when he was bringing the system over, was saying how he went to the school. And his house was right around the corner. We look back here and we see the conditions of his house. When we were, and we didn't mention Karen Freeman Wilson, Mayor Karen Freeman Wilson, we should have mentioned her earlier. Because with all the struggles, all the years that we struggled, she has signed a petition. Mayor Hatcher has signed a petition. Mayor Barnes has signed a petition. Mayor Rudy Clay signed a petition. The current mayor, Jerome Prince, has signed a petition. So all the mayors except Scott the King, I'm sorry I call him Scott the King, I'm going to continue to do that. But all the other mayors signed the petition. And I lost my thought. What?
Sign the petition.
The schools and the conditions here that we face in this community, in the homes. Y'all know we got a lot of work to do in this community. A lot of work. I mean, we don't even control our school system. The only school system in the whole state that's run by MGT. I see some of our people who are organizing, working on that end are out here. I mean, like Malcolm talked about, and his daughter talked about this morning on the interview with on WLTH. You know, how you let somebody else control your school, control the businesses in their community? We have in our community 15 economy liquors. The people went to the city council, to the meeting, and said when they tried to get economy liquor number 3, it was economy liquor number 3 several years ago, which was the biggest fruit stand on the Glen Park section of our city. They wanted to turn it into a liquor store. We went to the commission meeting and we fought against it, and they voted against it. Then it went to the city council. They voted against it. About a month later, someone who's the current city council came back and said, nah, we can't do that. And so then here we had Pfefferman, who's gone now, and these Arabs, they got this liquor store, the largest liquor store in Gary, right here, Economy Liquor, which was a fruit stand, Economy Liquor number 3. Now there are 15 economy liquor stores in Gary.
No more economy liquor stores.
No more economy liquor stores. Matter of fact, they really need to go.
Yeah.
And so when we struggle, and this is another thing we need to point out, we struggle with working in our community. And we got people who are in positions to handle that. We got people who are contractors who work on that. And it's a serious struggle. And one of the things that the people say when they talk about it, and we acknowledge it, they talk about the fact that we people don't want to work. And I'm telling you, I don't want to get up and go to work every morning either. Who wants to go to work every day, every morning? Nobody. However, if you drinking tonight, it's a less chance you're going to want to go to work. And we allow these people to come in and put 15 economy liquor stores in our community, and then we complain that the people don't want to work. So we might as well say it right here and right now. We say we need to put an ordinance in to make these liquor stores, you can't open till 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and you gotta be closed by 7. They ain't gonna like it, so if you don't like it, get out of town.
Yeah.
You know, get out of town. Yes, okay, yeah, where we at now? Another piece we got. Oh, this is kind of cool because y'all remember back in the day when Malcolm used to be on the I'm not gonna stay up here. I am gonna stay up here and say one thing. We were invited to speak at the Malcolm X Grassroots Movement's celebration in Atlanta. They do it every year. And also at one they had in Greenville, South Carolina with our sister Ifia Imagaza. And one of the things we talked about was this. Ignorant violent, vulgar, pornographic, self-hating music that's being pushed on the masses of our children and our youth. I see Sister Layla here. She found out about what we were doing, and she put out 2 newspapers called The Metropolis. Check out The Metropolis, that deals specifically with that issue of these radio stations and that pornographic music they push on the African masses. Now here in Gary, we struggle with
You have your website.
so yeah, y'all check it out. It's Clear the Airways Project, and we need everybody to look and join that website, because you know, how you gonna do this to our music? And every time our children turn the radio station on that targets them, N-bombs are being dropped on them. Kanye West is in trouble right now for saying something about another group. However, he's been saying stuff, and his other ilk has been talking bad about our people, dropping N-bombs on us for years. Pushing self-hate on the masses of our people. And who taught you to hate yourself? Malcolm, one of his famous speeches. You know, so, wow. Anyway, so y'all please check out the Clear the Airways Project. We gotta protect our children. Our children are our children. They require us to protect them. They count on us to protect us. We gotta protect our children from these beasts. You know, we talk about these schools, our little girls are struggling in these schools, they're fighting in the schools, our brothers, they just want to be gangbangers, but who's pushing that? The media, the music, another thing Malcolm talked about. So, there's a lot of work we gotta do. So again, check out the Clear the Airways Project. We even filed a petition with the Federal Communications Commission. They have decency standards that states, even though they uphold the First Amendment rights to free speech, they say that you cannot play content that is indecent and profane between the hours of 6 o'clock in the morning and 10 o'clock at night, because those are the hours that our children are listening. And then they said obscene content is never allowed. However, y'all know like I know, 92.3 right over here in Hammond, GCI, iHeart, all around the country and in Chicago, they don't stop bombarding our children with this poison propaganda. So we gotta work to put a stop to this. In 2021, 250 rappers were killed. 250 rappers were killed, 200 from gun violence. And it don't seem like it stopped so far this year. So since I'm talking, I can't get this phone to see how close they are, but please check out our, Okay, so yeah, so please check that out. And Sister Akili, yeah, say a few things while I check the phone to see where they are. I know you were talking about our
we were talking about our education system, and we have a t-shirt that we were putting out this year. It says educate, not incarcerate. We are looking at so many of our youth who are going to prison as children. They're first going to the juvenile system, and then from there they're being railroaded into prisons. We're not saying that people don't make bad decisions and do things that harm others in the community, but what we are saying is that if you really are a Malcolmite, and that's what I call it, you're a Malcolmite, you know that people can change, but they can't change if when they come out here, there's no one here to give them a chance to be that change that you all say you want them to be. And I can take a gauge around here, and I would guarantee you everybody out here knows somebody who's been locked up. If they don't know somebody, they might be locked up themselves or have been. And we never ever acknowledge the fact that we have to take care of our own. All the programs that they have in the state for re-entry, they never make it up to Northwest Indiana. All these programs stop short of Northwest Indiana. We have gone looking to see what is available. Everything that I have been able to find, Northwest Indiana is locked out. And these are our children. Our schools are failing our children. Our children are angry, socially, emotionally, they are hurting. And if we don't answer them, they're going to answer us. They're going to make us their tomorrow's victims, because anger has to be released somewhere. And if you don't have the skills to come out here and compete, which many of them don't, okay, I'm working in a school system. They can't write on level. They can't read. Math is a foreign language unless you break it down to how many ounces or how much money. That way, it's math. It gets them started. It keeps them engaged. We have to be the parents that we say that we want to see other children have. Be those other kids' parents. Because a lot of kids need parenting. Gary's always been a migrant city. You come from one city to another. Okay, my folks came from the South way back before they thought about me. And so we're all migrants. We have to learn to engulf those that have made Gary their home and stop being divisive. And the first thing we as Gary say, where you from? What school you went to? Who you know? Who your people? We are our people. We are only 11.9% of the general population in the United States of black people. That leaves you 13.9% of Hispanics. The rest is not us. When we leave these little hubs that we have to go out here and we have to make our voices heard and respected. So when you all see a teacher, I know some of us teachers are a little bit, gun shy. Don't hug us, but salute us or something. Let us know. You understand the struggle, and for those who are engaged with kids, if you got kids, know your kids' friends, meet their families, invite those kids to your house, because every kid wants to be loved, and there's no such thing as a bad kid. And so it's up to us to determine what our children are going to look like. And for those who have gone astray, don't turn your back on them. We're supposed to be this Christian nation and all forgiving, but we forgive everybody but our own. Everybody can get to the White House even, and we never forgive our own. We always want to hold that flag in front of our people, but we forgive everybody else. It's time for us to start taking care of us. It's time for us to let people know, okay, yeah, you made that mistake, but we're here to help you if you want to be helped. Can't help you if you don't. So Malcolm X is a true witness that people change. He went in a pimp and came out a genius in his own right, because he kept growing. He didn't stagnate. And he made us look at things differently. Like I said, I was only in 5th grade when he died.
Quick update, because the sister's
She
here.
made it.
Yeah, and so we're gonna go get her, but I also want the people to understand. No, she's right here. So I want the people to understand too that I almost forgot this. It's October 15th. This is the same day that the Black Panther Party was founded in Oakland, California. So we got to acknowledge that, because Malcolm, as we know, has 6 daughters. Here's one of them who's here with us right now, but didn't have any sons, and the Black Panther Party considered themselves the sons of Malcolm, even though there was, of course, a bunch of sisters in there handling business and doing what needed to be done. So we got to acknowledge this is the anniversary of the Black Panther Party to today. So that's also apropos that we're doing this. All right, she's here, and let's get ready to unveil the song.
I'm ready now. We can go.
Blake's ready. It's for you. Yeah.
They were. In like 5 seconds.
Serious dude. That's a shot. That's me. You guys ready?
Yes!
Yes. Long way bar.
Waiting on you.
Long way bar. Long way bar.
Get it.
Long way bar.
So I'll be on Malcolm X Drive. Meet me over there.
So our sister will be speaking. I'm just going to say a few words now, but she will really be speaking at IUN this evening, this afternoon at 5 o'clock. And also, we have some books to sell also, and a book signing too.
What the book signing gonna be? Okay.
Thank you, Gary and Deanne. I know there are 40,000 people who signed a petition, and we are grateful. And we're just hoping that someone will come in and really bring more life to your communities, right? That we will invest money back into our communities. But the only way that's going to happen is when we use our voices when we're together. Right. It's not going to happen any other way. So God bless you all. It's such an honor.
God bless you.
All right.
Angel Night, affectionately known as the Real Angel Night, and I'll be your host tonight for this spectacular and historical event. So I just want to welcome you here and thank you all for coming, because all of these faces, and this is just so important to the city of Gary. So I just want to welcome you and make sure that everybody's feeling good and excited about our speaker today. And she has a lot to tell you, and we hope you enjoy the program today.
All right.
So, and yeah, one more thing about housekeeping. Remember, we are in the theater, so you want to turn your phones on off. Just, yeah, so go ahead and you know everybody's here. There's a lot of important people in the house, so just make sure the phone's not ringing while we're, I don't know about the record. I'll find out about that. I think everything, it's a no record. So it's a no record when she is speaking, so I do apologize about that, but it will be available soon online. So check the Black Lives Matter probably, more than likely. Okay, so without further ado, we would like to introduce our illustrious mayor to welcome us in today. He has a presentation that he'd like to present. So please welcome our mayor, Jerome A. Prince.
So thanks to Angel, and certainly thanks to all of you. Not sure if this is working. There it is. So listen, Angel did a wonderful job on the welcome. I want to especially welcome Ms. Shabazz, Dr. Shabazz, and all of you to the city of Gary, and especially here to Berglund Hall. This, as Angel said, is a wonderful occasion. I would be remiss if I did not mention the organizers of this event this evening, and specifically Quabena.
All right, all right, all right.
Most of us who've been around for any time, and certainly me as a member of the Common Council over 23 years ago, know how long you've worked at this effort. And as I told you the other evening, this is a true testament to persistence for a worthwhile and certainly a notable cause. I've been on behalf of the city of Gary, all of its elected officials, residents, and certainly myself. I thank you for your efforts. I congratulate you on bringing us here this evening, and I certainly want to welcome Dr. Shabazz. We have a certificate of recognition of this monumentous day for Dr. Shabazz. This is in behalf of the city of Gary. It says Mayor Jerome Prince, the City Council, and the City of Gary recognize and honor Dr. Shabazz, daughter of Malcolm X and Betty Shabazz, for her work as an educator, activist, and for joining us, the residents of Gary, here today for the opening of Malcolm X Boulevard on October 15th, 2022. I present this to you with honor. So listen, you all enjoy yourselves this evening, and thank you again for the opportunity.
All right.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and we will continue with our program. Dr. Shabazz. I have to say it slow because I don't want to mess it up. People mess my name up all the time. But yeah, I will be saying it slow. So she keeps saying it slow because I don't want to mess it up, right? So Dr. Shabazz.
All right.
Award-winning author, educator, producer. Dr. Shabazz has authored 5 historical novels, has served as project advisor for the PBS award-winning film, Prince Among Slaves, documentary, and is currently producing a television series based on the life of Malcolm X with Sony Pictures TriStar. She is co-chairperson of Malcolm X and Dr. Betty Shabazz Memorial and Education Center. the Shabazz Center. In her work to preserve the legacy of her parents, she's dedicated herself to institutional building, intergenerational leadership development with tenets of diversity, equity, and inclusion. Dr. Shabazz has furthered her community impact with the City University of New York's Office of Academic Affairs, where she created curriculum to encourage higher education for underserved inner city high school dropouts. She has worked with the Office of the Mayor in Mount Vernon as Director of Public Affairs and Special Events. She's founded and produced the Young Adult Development Center. The purpose of the program was to provide insight on social justice, encouraging personal development. As president and founder of IYASA Shabazz Enterprises, she produces a variety of forums dedicated to power, possibility, and sovereignty. In recognition of her outstanding achievements in public service, education, and the arts, Worcester State University conferred IYASA Shabazz with the degree of Doctor of Human Letters. Dr. Shabazz is a member of the Soar Higher Cabinet Committee for New Paltz College, a member of the Advisor Council of the Equal Rights Amendment Coalition, a member of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, and she serves as trustee for the Harlem Symphony Orchestra. Dr. Shabazz holds a Master of Science in Education and Human Resource Development from Fordham University, and a Bachelor of Science in Biology from New Paltz College. Currently, she is an adjunct professor at John Jay College of Criminal Justice in New York City, where she teaches perspectives on justice in Africana world. Grounded in the commitments of her parents, Dr. Shabazz emphasizes empowerment and inclusion in her teachings and scholarship. Can we all stand and welcome Dr. IYASA Shabazz.
Excuse me, sister. I wanted to put my iPad out. Where should I put it? I'll need to put it out here. Because I'll take this. Okay, hello.
Hello.
Are we in Gary, Indiana? Okay. Of course, the most famous part, I bet you everybody who comes here, they acknowledge the Jackson 5 who made your city really famous. Right? I'm going back to Indiana. Indiana, here I come. I'm going back to Indiana because that is where my baby's from. So I know all about Indiana, and it's such an honor to be here, especially on this day. As one of 6 daughters of Malcolm X and Dr. Betty Shabazz, to the Office of Diversity, Equity, and Multicultural Affairs, and to the University Department of Minority Studies, you know, where we live, we don't use the word minority, but also to the 4,000 people who signed the petition, to the United African Movement, to New Roots, Black Lives Matter, Gary, and of course to Corbina.
All right.
I'm also honored to be greeted by your illustrious President of the United States, Mayor, we're going to speak it into existence, and his lovely wife and their accompaniments. Thank you for inviting me to discuss the legacy of my parents, Malcolm X and Dr. Betty Shabazz, on the topic as we look to the past to give direction to our future.
In the 1950s, it was Dr. Carter G. Woodson, historian and founder of Negro History Week, who urged, the biggest race is to see who will control the minds of young people. And so we have to let our young people understand the power that they possess. Our young people must recognize their power. And so I don't know if there are college students here. Oh, but there are, okay. So to the seniors, I encourage you to mentor the incoming freshmen. Make sure, whether you're seniors in college, seniors in your community, whatever the case may be, right? Make sure they know, as my father said, that stumbling is not falling. Help them avoid the pitfalls of individualism, materialism, and consumerism. Teach them to embrace the values of literature, education, and responsibility. Let them know it will be their responsibility to do the same when they become seniors, that they must also reach back to the freshmen when they become seniors as part of their legacy. And remember, a culture of excellence demands effort, sustained effort. And I say this because, you know, I've gone to places where there are lots of, you know, big crowds of people. They organize, they plan to ensure that the people were attending, right? And then I would go back years later to find that the numbers were trickling because that the older generation had the mentorship, but they didn't realize that they also had to mentor those who come after them. Yeah. And that we have to let the young people, or the people under us who are coming in newly, we have to let them know that they must do the same so that we continue the legacy and we don't find ourselves sitting back waiting for someone to do something for us that they haven't done all this time. And so it's creative when we do more than simply aspire to make a name for ourselves, but when we strive to leave a legacy for others. And so I ask you, what legacy do you hope to leave? First and foremost, as my own routine, I'd like to give praise to the Almighty, our Creator. I'd also like to give praise to our ancestors, all of them, and on this occasion particularly, the refined, industrious men and women of African ancestry, Black, Indigenous, people of color, those who have not been properly honored in history, those whose stories have been improperly documented, those to whom we can trace our lineage, all of us. We give praise to the countless men and women who birthed humanity, who birthed thriving civilizations, including those who migrated across the earth, birthing new civilizations, whether they be in the Philippines, in China, in Europe, wherever man existed, including those who migrated across the earth, birthing new civilizations. Those descendants who endured physical and psychological trauma, who endured the largest forced migration of a people in the history of humankind. However, we still stand and prosper. It's got to be something special about us. All right, all right. We are strong, we are vigilant, and we are interconnected as a human family. On February 21st, 1965, my mother, sisters, and I witnessed the assassination of her husband, our young father, El-Hajj Malik El-Shabazz, Malcolm X. My pregnant mother placed her body over my three sisters and me to protect us from gunfire and to make sure we would not see the terror before us. In spite of witnessing the horrific assassination of her young husband, Sister Betty never gave in to bitterness or despair. Even though she was just a few years older than many of the young people here, the younger people here who are in their 20s. but it looks like everyone here is about in their teens or 20s. I haven't seen anybody over 22. But she had every right. Rather, this young woman kept her husband's essence, his love, values, and humanity integral in our household. She wanted to make sure that her 6 daughters did not suffer from the immediate, abrupt loss of our father's physical presence and love. And though he was physically gone, my mother made certain that her husband remained a part of our household conversations for as long as I can remember. My youngest sisters, the twins, will tell you so many stories about Daddy. But my younger sisters weren't even born when my father was assassinated. My mother was still pregnant, and this is a testament to Betty Shabazz. Yes. You know, and when she passed away, I had to take a step back and just look at this woman, not from the perspective as my mother, but just from the perspective as a woman, from the perspective as a human being. And, you know, and I don't know how she did it, but she did. I knew my father loved me because of my mother. I knew that he had impeccable integrity and a great sense of humor. I knew he loved jazz music, literature, poetry, that he studied history, nature, the arts. I believe that he was a wise man, selfless, compassionate, and loving, and overall, he was led by his service to God. We had a beautiful butterfly and poetry collections that were his, and who would think that Malcolm X would have a butterfly collection because we had been so misinformed. Right. We had his clothes, his briefcase, and size 14 shoes that I would romp around the house in. And I say that because I see so many renderings of my father that are like 5 feet tall. And no discrimination against shorter men, right? We love all people, but my father was almost 6'5". So I usually tell people who are taller, how would you like to come and find a, rendering of yourself that's 4 feet 5, right? So my 2 older sisters thought I was just too young to hang out with them, and it became me and the 3 little ones. And I'd either play mommy or daddy, and the 3 little ones were my children. And we'd find a treasure trove of money, news clippings, my father's stories, love notes to my mother, and smiling photos of our father were everywhere in our house. In retrospect, my mother raised us in a bubble of love, which reinforced trust, kindness, respect, and compassion. It was only in college that I began to learn about the inaccurate portrayals of my father's character and his life's work. I started to understand why my mother protected us from the negative depictions of Malcolm X, so that his legacy and work could be accurately realized for the benefit of this generation. My father burst onto the scene of the civil rights movement as a young man just in his 20s, not much older than you guys here. The climate in America was antithetical to the humanity of Black Americans, not that different than from today's climate. They struggled against Jim Crow, and sometimes today we struggle against Karen. Right? How many of you know a Karen? All right, we just have to help Karen understand we have to better inform her. Separate and unequal were the law of the land. The rights of Black Americans were denied under color of law. Black people were terrorized, living without protection and without hope for a just America. And in a humble submission to God and his people, Malcolm X stood up and stepped forward. And what we didn't know is that Malcolm didn't emerge in a vacuum. Many people think that Malcolm went to jail and illiterate and walked out, Malcolm X the icon. But this narrative negates the importance of family. It negates the importance of fatherhood, the importance of motherhood, the importance of mentors, the importance of critical thinking and education. Malcolm studied history and Islam before he met Elijah Muhammad. You know, I often hear people say Elijah Muhammad made Malcolm X. But Malcolm studied Islam before he met Elijah Muhammad from a Pakistani musician Muslim. He was a star debater, and that was when he was in his 20s. He was a star debater on the Colony Prisons team in his early 20s. The Colony was an experimental prison which offered reform and rehab, and they debated Ivy League schools, Boston University, Harvard, MIT, and Malcolm won. Malcolm studied the dictionary not because he couldn't read or write as books are telling us. He studied because he was fascinated by etymology, the root of words. He labored to become his best self, and he did so on a global stage. Listen to this poem we found. Mostly everything in his records work just disappeared. But it just so happened during COVID, there were two gentlemen that I was having calls with, and each of us, I was working on The Awakening of Malcolm X, my latest book, and another gentleman was working on the biography of Malcolm X, his adolescent years, and another one on the film with 50 Cent on his time in prison. And it was this gentleman, the biographer in Boston, in Japan, who shared this poem that they found in Shorty's file. And it was to this it was to the Pakistani Muslim who was a musician. And he wrote, in his 20s, before he became a Muslim, before he followed the nation and came out of jail, he said, that black musician, he picks up his horn and starts blowing sounds he's never thought of before. He improvises, he creates it. It comes from within. It's his soul. It's that soul music. It's the only area on the American scene where the black man has been free to create, and he's mastered it. He's shown that he can come up with something no one has ever created before. Likewise, he can do the same thing given intellectual independence. He can come up with a new philosophy. He can invent a new society. He can create a social system that is different from anything that exists or has ever existed. And that was Malcolm in his 20s. And so this is why we have to control the narrative, right? And so when his favorite teacher, Mr. Ostrowski, asked Malcolm as a young, impressionable, fatherless and motherless 13-year-old what he wanted to be when he grew up. Because look, young Malcolm was already top of his all-white class in Middle America. He was class president in the 1930s. Young Malcolm replied to his favorite teacher that he wanted to be a lawyer, not a musician or a firefighter or a doctor, but a lawyer, because it's what he saw in his father, helping the underserved, marginalized populations. But his teacher told young Malcolm in no uncertain terms was being a lawyer a realistic goal for the N-word. Now, could you imagine your teacher? So when students are at a crossroads, they need adults who are critical thinkers around them to guide, nurture, and protect their way back home. When we tell students or young people what they can't do, we create a self-fulfilling prophecy. Social psychologist Claude Steele identifies this as the stereotype threat. Dr. Joy DeGroom-Leary says something similar. So we're talking about STEM, but I see that there aren't children and young students. But by making students believe that they can succeed in their careers, we can create a self-fulfilling prophecy for the better. And I think that this is the ideal role for educators and parents and adults. We must lift each other up with encouragement and positive enforcement. A simple, great job, I'm proud of you, keep pushing is not a difficult task for us to say, to pass on. Malcolm's advocacy work was nurtured by his parents, Reverend Earl and Louise Little. They were members of the Universal Negro Improvement Association. It was an organization founded in 1914 by Marcus Garvey, which commanded millions of followers worldwide and was dedicated to providing racial pride, economic self-sufficiency, and the formation of an independent nation during the height of Jim Crow. It was just a few years after slavery ended. And so to provide context, it was the social climate of the Black Wall Street massacres that we've all discovered in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and Rosewood, Florida. Malcolm's father, Earl Little, was a husband, a father, and a landowner. He purchased premium land that was reserved for whites only. When I set out to write my children's book, I was presented with a child's image. That was, I had a illustrator, and the painting that he gave me, it was a child's image that was barefoot with high water cut off overalls. And I said, please put some shoes on him and allow his pants to cover his ankles. Because that's the image that we're given, and that's the image that we think. You see, the truth is that Malcolm's father was president of the Industrial League. He was chapter president of the Garvey movement, and he was a member of the Parent-Teacher Association. He was a stand-up, responsible young man, and that's why Malcolm grew up to be the person that he was. And so, again, this speaks to the role of fatherhood. But if you don't know that, then you think, I can go to jail and walk out to be a Malcolm X. And so his father was about 6'4", also, charcoal black. He owned his own home. He had farming land and a fancy car. He was a self-sufficient human rights activist. And with all of these attributes, he was targeted by the KKK and ultimately lynched, tied down onto a train track which severed his torso in half. Who does that? Malcolm's mother was an educated woman who spoke several languages. She was the recording secretary for the Garvey movement. Several years after her husband was murdered, much like her children, she was without protection. The local authorities swooped in and committed her to an institution against her will. However, she had already notified 3 other West Indian families who were also members of the Garvey movement, and she made them promise if the authorities ever took her away that they would raise her children with Garvey values, and they did. Malcolm and his siblings were eventually separated. My father writes about this in the autobiography of Malcolm X, and this is what happened to many Black families, to many families of color. And it's important that we know this information, right? And that premium family land, which was purchased by their father, reserved for whites only, was seized and the home demolished. End of story. But together, Earl and Louise instilled in their son the values of education and responsibility, and this is what we should also be doing for our children. As young Garveyites, Malcolm's parents were models of selflessness and sacrifice as they deferred personal freedom for the betterment of society, much like Malcolm did. But this is what happens when we allow others control of our stories. For example, Malcolm X and Dr. King, too often, men who saw themselves as brothers have been portrayed as polar opposites, even as enemies. People often come and whisper to me that they were on the side of Malcolm. I'm like, okay. Or that they were on the side of Martin. But ladies and gentlemen, we do not have to choose sides. All right. Right? Both men challenged an unjust and immoral world. Sometimes people say, oh, Malcolm, he was controversial. He wasn't. What was controversial? Oh, he was what? And we forget what is actually happening. We forget. And so even though they have their philosophical differences, Malcolm's point of view was human rights and Dr. King's point of view was civil rights. Both were needed to accomplish our ultimate goals. And we should be able to celebrate both of them. You see, Malcolm said when we face divisiveness, which wants to convince us that we must choose one over the other, we must choose to come together. Back in my day, we were made to believe we had to choose Tupac or Biggie, Malcolm or Martin. Why can't we simply embrace each for his craftsmanship? I love both of them. Why can't we appreciate both for their undying love and commitment for their people? I've seen the beauty of community. I've witnessed sisterhood firsthand. After my father and Dr. King were assassinated, my mother and Aunt Coretta Scott King became best of friends, despite what has been portrayed as divisiveness. You know, sometimes we think that the Kings and the Shabazzes aren't, the same. You have to choose one or the other. The two eldest daughters of Axela Shabazz, my eldest sister, and Yolanda King, founded an actress touring company together. Dr. Bernice King and I are sister friends as well. The Shabazz Center was inspired by the King Center. We are not rivals, we are sisters. And so we can choose to either fight each other or fight for each other. Because when we fight for each other, our possibilities are limitless. But when we sit around fighting each other, we're not going to accomplish anything but early death. We must become agents of hope and create a society that works for everyone, ourselves. Nobody's going to do it for us. We can't sit back and think someone else is going to do it for us when they haven't done it this long.
Right.
So we can't complain about our schools, we can't complain about our children, we can't complain about our neighborhoods, we can't complain about anything. Because it means that we're waiting for someone to do something for us. We have to understand that we have to come together first and foremost, especially us critical thinkers, us forward-thinking adults. We have to come together and create clubs, committees, whatever it is, right? So that we can accomplish some of these challenges that we find ourselves in. We can talk about them, we can resolve them, we can seek support from one another instead of wasting time fighting, and then we get old on our deathbeds and we apologize, or we have these epiphanies, right? Yes. So this means creating clubs, group sessions, circle of sisters, circle of brothers, challenging systems that maintain disproportionate incarceration rates of young black men. And we have no power to help our children. There's nothing we can do. Young black women, systems that create racial disparities and child poverty. We ourselves must devise solutions and propose. We've got our mayor here. We can support our mayor and make sure that he's supporting us. And then we can bring him into the White House. But we must devise solutions and propose legislation that combats these grave injustices, but we can only do it together.
Yeah.
In the 1870s, just a few years after slavery legally ended, young, beautiful college students attending Fisk University established the Fisk Jubilee Singers. I'm always in such awe of these young students who were determined to inform the world of the inhumanity and terror of their people, of slavery. And they created and introduced the world to the great spirituals. They are the creators of the great spirituals, but we don't really know that. These young students who were formerly enslaved, some of whom were formerly enslaved, with every challenge against them, wrote and composed sorrow songs of their trauma. They determined to use their wisdom and their angelic voices to sing crafted compositions about the terror endured on and off plantations. Google the Fisk Jubilee Singers and listen to the lyrics of their songs. They were young children creating these songs. In the 1870s, their young voices echoed the refrain that Black Lives Matter. Through their voice, the Jubilee Singers were able to inform, engage, and inspire a universal humanity for their people. With all of these obstacles against them, certainly we can do more. You see, these young, some formerly enslaved students understood that Black power is not exclusionary. It does not divide us or elevate one group over another. It simply recognizes the crimes committed against humanity, the discrepancy in history, and it strives to restore our membership in the human family with dignity, pride, respect. Those young students, Fisk University Jubilee Singers whose foreparents were targeted, trafficked, and held in bondage against their will in such despair, understood that only we could tell our own narrative. Only we could create strategies to obtain true freedom, justice, and peace. My father said only a fool would sit back and allow his oppressor to teach his children and do nothing about it.
All right.
And so we must participate in controlling the narratives of our stories ourselves. Take, for example, this new film which was released in theaters around the world just a few weeks ago featuring Viola Davis, The Woman King. How many of us saw it? That's what I'm talking about. This movie is inspired by the true story of the Dahomey female warriors who resisted European colonizers. This David versus Goliath story is set in the present-day Benin in 1823, West Africa. So this was before the continent got cut up in so many small countries, making us more divided and weak and everything else. But Gina Bythwood, the director of the film, said the biggest eye-opener for her was how much false information there was about these women and this culture, because so much of the history was written from the colonizers' point of view, because we heard, oh, they were capturing their people, they were selling them off, and we heard all of these stories. She says that it was really challenging separating the disparaging and disrespectful information which was so far from the truth. Stories from these historical perspectives of humanity must be included in our educational curriculum so that every child has the opportunity to be their whole and beautiful self.
Yeah.
Are you with me?
Yeah.
And so whether it's through the songs of the Jubilee Singers, the marches of the Civil Rights Movement, the sit-ins of the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, or the actions of countless young student activists fighting bigotry, all of us came here this evening because we too are creating hope and new dreams. I believe that every child deserves an opportunity to know that they are worthy of love, worthy of a quality education, and worthy to safely participate in society if they so desire, but they're not going to know that unless we help them.
That's right.
And ultimately, while we must wrestle with the grief and despair of the social and political climate, we must also hold on to the joy that comes from generative possibility. We, as a nation, are more than equipped to create radical spaces rooted in collective flourishing. Malcolm provided the biggest critique of his country, simply insisting that America live up to her promise of liberty and justice for all. That's all he did. And we see what happened as a result of that. In the 1950s, when young people were seeking civil rights, my father came along and said, "We demand our human rights as your brother. We're not asking you, can we be human? We demand our human rights as ordained by God. No asking. Let's come together and talk about what the problem is." And so he introduced a human rights agenda to the civil rights movement. And in less than 12 years, Malcolm showed the world how it had been miseducated about Africa as the first world nation. No third world nation, no underdeveloped nation, right?
That's right.
No minority, right? Because we're not the minority. He internationalized the struggle for blacks worldwide because we didn't even know who we were. We didn't know the people in Nigeria or the people in South Africa or Dahomey. We didn't know the people in Jamaica. I mean, I had people that would come to me and say, "Thank you for sharing about your people," not realizing we're all the same.
Yeah.
Yes. So he showed the world how it had been miseducated about Africa as the first world nation. He internationalized the struggle for blacks worldwide. He informed us that wherever black, indigenous people of color existed, they were experiencing the same inhumane treatment, and he sought to reimagine the national and international political landscape for the benefit of the human family. In a country outlawing critical race theory, where students need the simple truth about education, the truth about history, about identity and purpose, the truth about everyone rather than a few select someones in this land of milk and honey, we must ask, if not us, then who? Who's going to do it? As inequality still stands in the way of progress and we gather to fight for justice, we must ask ourselves, if not now, when? What are we waiting for? My father said, if you stick a knife in my back 9 inches and pull it out 6 inches, there's no progress. The knife is still in my back. If you pull it all the way out, that's not progress. There's an open wound. Progress is healing the wound that the blow made. And while these past years have made us aware, and that was the reason for the Garvey movement, to address this big wound, this gash. And while these past years have made us aware of our collective wounds, we must do more to ensure that we are no longer victims of sexism, xenophobia, or racial profiling. We must do more to critique, dismantle, and reform the unjust, separate sets of rules under which America operates. America's truth and its history must be taught to our students in every school and at every level. It is an opportunity to instill the values of honesty, compassion, forgiveness in our children, rather racism, bullying, and all those other horrible things, right? This is part of our path forward. Textbooks that teach every child that Black history is American history, is world history. And that American history also includes Hispanic history, Native American history, and Asian history. There's no American history unless each and every voice is heard on the pages of those textbooks. And this is the beauty of our America, to have representatives of every nation cohabiting right here together. I read where a school district in Missouri voted to ban Toni Morrison's first novel, The Bluest Eye. One member who cast her vote to ban the book said, by all means, buy the book for your child, but I would not want this book in our school for anyone else to see. Well, what does it say when we close our eyes and shut our ears to bigotry and injustice? Because each one is accountable. Once we know, we can't say we didn't know when we go to God and want to get in that gate, right? What does it say about us? What does it say about our value system? We understand that education has the power to bring about change, personal change, institutional change, systemic change. When I'm asked what changes can be made in higher education to advance social justice and the work of anti-racism, I always start with, what authors are you citing? Which books are you assigning to your students to read? Are you bringing receipts to your meetings? Scientists, anthropologists, and archaeologists have proven that Africa is the birthplace of our humanity.
Yes.
Imagine if students learned in world history class that Africa is the cradle of the most advanced civilizations.
Yeah.
Take, for example, the kingdoms of Benin, Egypt, Ethiopia, the Congo, Mali. If students were taught about Egypt and Ethiopia in the same way they've been taught about ancient Greece and Rome, we might better appreciate the beauty and magnificence of civilizations in Africa, Asia, and Latin America. The African continent serves as a foundation and as an extension of our common humanity. It's where life began. So I would think that everyone would want to know the truth about this foundation. So you see what my father, Dr. King, Dr. Carter G. Woodson, Fannie Lou Hamer, Ida B. Wells, Harriet Tubman, Frederick Douglass, Nat Turner, the Jubilee Singers, and countless other Black American activists who sought relief from the knife wedged in their backs knew is this. Even if you were not the officer who knelt on George Floyd's neck, you might very well have been one of the officers who stood by as he was dying and cried out to his deceased mother and turned a blind eye. At one time or another, we've all watched. And whether out of fear or believing it not our responsibility, we've allowed injustice to perpetuate in the world around us. But I believe education, the good, the bad, and the ugly, is the key to being woke to these very injustices. It's the key to understanding our roles as human beings. My mother taught me this path. She believed education is the most powerful tool to combat systemic racism. I'm coming down to the end. Listen, they sometimes ask me to speak for an hour, and I'm like, no more than 35 minutes. But my mother spent the last 20 years of her life working in higher education in Brooklyn, New York, at Medgar Evers College, understanding its value and ability to change lives for the better. My mother was in the system, you could say, because she knew that to overcome injustice, we have to combat it at every level. Business, the arts, politics, education, music, everywhere. Dr. Betty made sure that I received a quality education, and so I follow in her footsteps as an educator. As a child, Sheikh Tawfiq would come to our house, me and my 5 sisters, every Wednesday, and he'd teach us about the significant contributions that women, the continent of Africa, the diaspora, indigenous first world nations, and Islam made to the world. We learned about the oneness of God, and hence the oneness of humanity. We learned to truly love ourselves, and trust me, we really did. We never relied on others to determine our self-worth. That is so important. We never relied on anyone to determine our self-worth. And I certainly don't rely on anyone today to determine my value. Today, it allows me to see you as a reflection of me and me as a reflection of you. To love you as much as I love myself. My parents knew if I learn to love me, I can love you. If I don't love me, I can't love you, and I will be no help to you ever. And when we look at our young people who are now finding themselves in these really destructive places, it's because they lack the opportunity to love themselves.
All right.
And so the only way it's going to be fixed is by us. Otherwise, they're going to be shipped off to prison. And when we don't learn this lesson, we get caught in a cycle of division and self-destruction. And this is likely why self-love and activism were paramount in our household. My parents' lessons about education and activism are more relevant than ever. My hope is that these most challenging and pressing years will produce present and future generations of problem solvers who focus on a holistic approach to human rights. For us to move this needle, our work must be a transformative collective movement waged on multiple fronts where each of us is invested in somehow. As a nation, we've witnessed political unrest, a deep, constant grief. Yet it has been a moment ripe for growth and possibility. It has propelled national discourse around the movement for Black lives, the need for systemic change in a more egalitarian America. Central to this discourse is the strength of community-led institutions that reflect our collective visions for what freedom really looks like and what accountability, democracy, and self-determination really are. We have to look for it ourselves, in ourselves. And if we can't find it in ourselves, then we get others to come along with us and have conversations until we finally do. Now more than ever is the time to commit to the work of radical institution building. Many organizations, including the King Center, the Shabazz Center, and so many others, have heeded the call for structural systemic change, innovative institution building, and spirit-driven activism, but we need more. This is our moment right now to bring about change. As educators, administrators, corporate, community, campus leaders, it is our responsibility to build and organize community networks. It is our responsibility to stand for those who cannot stand for themselves. It is our responsibility to find our voices and make our voices heard together by any means necessary. We cannot continue to be manipulated by self-centered thinking. We must reject the idea that we can pull ourselves up by our own bootstraps. It does not work, and it never has.
Right.
We must let go of divisiveness. Thank you, sister. Let go of divisiveness, behavior, and unite around common goals. It makes our lives so much better. To live more meaningful and purpose-driven lives. It is your turn to take the baton to higher heights.
All right.
My father said it would be this generation who would recognize that those in power have misused it and demand change, willing to do the necessary work. We have to guide them. As the activist, Fannie Lou Hamer. Yes. Let's give her. Said, we are in this bag together. She said, educated and uneducated, rich and poor, women, men, we are in this bag together. When we understand that collective action matters more than individual action, we can dream new dreams. We can create a world that makes our communities resonate with the words of the African proverb, if you want to go fast, go alone, but if you want to go far, we go together. And once we learn that we can only win together, We can only win together. We will stop focusing on what divides us in the midst of tragedies and triumphs, and play that great jazz of life in the tone of love and in the blue note of justice, ever resisting the cacophonies of evil and hate. When we bear witness, choosing community over chaos, we will be empowered by the truth that each of us is a beautiful creation destined to shine our light for the greater good. Thank you, I love you, and may God continue to bless you. All right.
Everyone, that was fantastic, right? Yeah. That was very powerful, right? I got a lot of, my pockets, they kind of big, but I'm telling you, I got a lot of nuggets. It's cool. I'm taking these nuggets with me. Yes. Usually, sometimes as I tell my kids, I got a pocket full of nose, but I got a pocket full of nuggets that I'm gonna use. That was so inspiring. Young people, you should be so inspired. Young people, go run, tell that. Go tell them who you saw. Go tell them what you heard. Go be that next thing. Go be great. You already are. You're already great. So after that message, I'm like so geeked up. But we got to do our thank yous and to-dos. So we're going to go ahead and do that. And we're going to bring in one of the most phenomenal person. And just like we gave her a standing ovation, we want to give her our own. Someone who put his heart into this whole program. Someone who has spent years and years of dedication. Everyone, please rise and welcome and thank you. Kwabena, please. Come on up.
Hey, let's give it up again one more time for Sister Bill Gospel. I'm going to try to run through these thank yous. And again, we've been getting a lot of praise today, but that praise, again, goes to the people, the 4,000 people who signed that petition. And that 1 out of those 10 who didn't sign it only because they were on paper in this community with these struggles that we deal with as a people. So again, let's give it up for the people. I'm going to try to run through quite a few thank yous, and like they always say, if I missed anybody, it's blame it on the head and not the heart, because again, it's been so many people. I'm looking at Dr. Jones from the department, Black Studies Department. The department is going through some serious struggles right now. They're trying to maintain here at the university, so they need the community to help put pressure on the school to make sure we keep that department strong. All right, so you need that. I see Dr. Hicks over here. I appreciate you, Dr. Hicks. Better if you have minority studies, huh? And I don't know if Dr. Contreras is here also, but he also was very instrumental in helping us get this piece. And so again, thanks to the university. Also to my comrades, Black Lives Matter. Like we said earlier, it's about organization. It's an individual getting some praise, but it's about organization. Organizations keep you focused, they hold you accountable, and they help you. So everybody needs to be a part of some organization. Who in here is part of an organization? Let us know. And if you're not, join an organization. Be part of an organization that's helping to uplift your community. Okay, so let's do that. So let's also talk about CDOT, Central District Organizing Project, who also did a lot of good work with this piece and helping this street name happen. Also want to give it up for my brother Adiami, and I see Brother Trent. Again, we said earlier they were in our house, Brother AG. We made the petition about 22 years ago. So again, appreciate you, brothers. I'm glad y'all here. 22 years later.
We got Malcolm X.
Yes, indeed. And Brother AG, who's not here now, but came here from North Carolina. I also want to talk about a few people who helped financially with this. Brother John Allen, the Urban League. Brother Cam Howard from Cobra. Who else? Brother Eddie Tarver. the Calumet Township. And I think that's about it. If I'm missing anybody, again, we'll bring it up in a minute. But also thanks to Brother Manson for those powerful libations today. Brother Kwame and the drummers and dollars, everybody who's out there today. City Council, I see Brother Godwin in here, and then when we said, hey, we got to get this done now, Brother, took the lead on helping us to get this done and make this happen. So appreciate you, Brother Godwin. So we're gonna do some questions. I'll probably forget some people too. I see Mr. Campbell, Mrs. Campbell here. They've been really strong supporters. My cousin will be getting me here on the radio station all the time. Oh, y'all check out the radio show. We do a conscious hip hop show. Sister Ilyasa talked a lot about the individualism and the issues we face as a people in our youth. Our youth are being bombarded with ratchet, killer music, telling them to kill each other. Telling them that every time our children turn on a radio station that targets them, they're being told to kill each other. They're being told that our daughters, our sisters, our mamas, our aunties, our wives, our girlfriends are B's and H's. They're being called, N-bombs are being dropped on them. Am I lying?
That's right.
And it has to stop. And like the sister said, it ain't gonna stop unless we make it stop. So we got a movement called Clear the Airways Project. We need y'all to join that movement. We got a campaign called Turn It Off. We also have another collective called Elevated Arts and Culture Collective. Look that up. Join our collective. You have to pledge to be part of that collective. That means you're going to do art or support art that's uplifting the African masses. So Elevated Arts and Culture Collective. And again, check out our show every Friday night for the last 22 years also on 88.7 where we do conscious hip hop and classic funk every Friday night, me and my cousin, just Lexi. So we're gonna take, give it up for that. So we got a few minutes for some questions and answers. And also, I believe Sister's gonna do sign some books. And so we can, it's been a long day, but it's been a wonderful day. And we'll let the people know, what's happening. Only 2 streets in Gary, they run through the whole city, north and south now. That Broadway to get to and from, and Malcolm X Drive.
Okay, as we prepare for the short Q&A, I just want to let you guys know that Dr. Shabazz, she did bring her books today, and she wasn't able to bring all of them because of shipping issues, but you will, if you want a book, she has several different books as you've heard today. You can order a book through her, and guess what? She'll sign that book, autograph it for you, and mail it to your house. But you are able to buy, like a lot of the children's books are available. So just make sure that you check out that opportunity. And there's a limited amount of these left, okay? So enjoy your Q&A. So if you want to be first, I don't know who's going to come around with the mic, but you guys may want to line up or something.
Where you want us to line up?
In the middle is fine. Down here. Oh, she has the mic. She can come to you, actually. I didn't even see you, Ludine. I didn't know she's been so busy. You want him to come down, Ludine?
I do.
Okay, so yeah, everyone just come down and then she can get you the mic. Everybody, just give Ludine a hand. She's been working so hard. She comes with the Gary International Film Festival last weekend. And again, she's in the background helping with this, so I want to thank you.
I greet everybody with the greetings of peace. Assalamu alaikum, and hotel, and other good greetings. Sister, I missed everything today. I just got through leaving the mosque, and sister just told me, said, I missed the street trying to get to you, wasn't meant, but I didn't miss this. So all praise be to Allah. Now, what book do you have that we can buy for a grown-up? What book do you have right now?
The Awakening of Malcolm X, but I this is for grown-ups as well. But I have the autobiography of Malcolm X.
Okay. And that was put together by the family or yourself? Or?
This is the autobiography of Malcolm X, is the book that everybody seems to read and be changed.
Oh, the Alex Haley one. I didn't even look up there. I got that one in my library. That's the same version of it.
Yes.
Okay, what other book do you have? Because I want to.
Just what's right here.
Okay, which?
There's a children's book, and there's but I have all of the books. Okay. I'm sorry. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I have all the books, but I don't know if they, for some reason, the boxes aren't available. Only one box came of the 5 books,
Yes,
of the
ma'am.
5 boxes.
Well, the book on the end, I'll buy that book. And I want to know, will you have a list? You have a list now? Do we have to write down? Or what we have to do in order
I
to?
thought it was up on the screen.
The books are rotating on the screen.
So, pencil and paper, then.
Okay.
Okay, so let me, how do we go about getting the book? We buy it from you up front right now?
Yeah, but I.
Okay, so maybe I'm going too fast. Okay, sir, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I did know, they're right on the screen. I'll just continue to press them and you can review them, as we continue to talk.
Okay, well, how do I buy the book right now?
Today you can buy the book, after the program.
Oh, after the
outside.
program.
Yes, right after the program, there'll be.
How long is the program?
Ludine, the lady that, the program is over.
Okay.
This is the last part, you're our first, talk back, and as soon as the other people behind you, whomever else, will be finished.
All right.
Thank you.
All right.
Greetings, sister. Thank you, Dr. Shabazz, for coming, and thank you and your family for all that you've given to Black America, to the world. Much appreciated. I recently purchased the book, Three Mothers, a movement. I haven't read it, highlighting the mothers of Dr. King and Brother Malcolm and James Baldwin. Can you tell us about the section on your grandmother?
I can't tell you about the section of that book, but there, scholars, especially women, have found Malcolm's mother to be very inspirational, and they thought, when they saw the work that she did, and she is the mother that produced Malcolm X, they decided to write a book about her. And I did share briefly about her accomplishments and her contributions.
All right.
And Sister, before you finish that question, I just want to share, because you mentioned of course, talked about the knife, taking the knife out and the healing of the wound. Our brother Cam Howard, I mentioned him earlier, used to be co-chair in Cobra, and is very instrumental in pushing that reparations for our people, which is part of healing that wound, and also contributed to this program this evening. So again, appreciate you, Brother Cam.
All right.
Okay, so I'll just ask this in verbatim. My question was, what motivated you to write a children's book?
Great question. Yeah. Well, at the time that I wrote Malcolm Little, the boy who grew up to become Malcolm X, there weren't many children's books about Black people. And I had taken a group of children to the mall, and they wanted to go to Barnes & Noble, and the book, I told them whatever book they wanted, I would buy for them. But the books that they brought to me, I didn't want to buy them because I knew that they were not going to, that they were going to look at another kind of beauty, but they needed to be reminded of their own. I wanted them to open up a book and see a reflection of themselves, and also to learn something at the same time, some real history. And that's why I wrote Malcolm Little, the boy who grew up to become Malcolm X.
Say thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome. And also, I think it's really important to understand the value of family, the value of love and literacy, and self-acceptance and leadership. And that's what this book focuses on. Yeah.
The lady behind.
So I don't need a microphone, so I'm just gonna talk. We kind of sort of know the story of Malcolm and Martin, and how basically they made a decision and they didn't really know what they were getting into. So you sign up for something, and then it turns into this massive movement in essence. And I know Martin, that's not the same because they put him in the movement. My question is, we are at a point where we should be moving forward, and it's going to require a lot of us to get involved. How do you inspire us to get past being afraid and the possibilities that of what could happen, because we've seen what happened to our leaders, and a lot of us don't want to go down that path. So I know I'm in this, but it takes a lot to pass or inspire people to basically risk their lives.
Well, I think for me, when I see my mother, who was in her 20s, and a firebomb is thrown in the nursery of her home to kill her babies, and then she witnesses her husband's assassination, and in spite of all of that horror, terror, trauma, that she wasn't afraid to continue to safeguard her husband's legacy and raise her 6 girls, and that she didn't see herself ever as a victim, but that she manifested a way to raise her girls the way she did. And I think if my mother can do it, that we can do that. Absolutely. You have to believe, in God with your whole self, and manifest whatever it is that you want to accomplish. But it requires work. It requires determination. My mother raised 6 girls. Her home was firebombed. That meant that she didn't have a home. Her husband was gone. He was the protector, the person that provided. He was gone. She went and got her PhD while she had 6 babies. Nobody helped her. She just did it, and I think that we have to be determined. But she said that Malcolm helped her understand life in a different way. That she was able to see her own power by being educated, by understanding the same kinds of information that she made sure her girls had. I'm not fearful. I continue to do the work that I do. So I think that whatever it is we want to accomplish, it is challenging. And I think so many times that we spend our entire lifetimes trying to find real freedom, right? Our entire lifetimes fighting against injustice, being scared. We spend our entire lifetimes, then we die. Life ends.
That's right.
So, at some point, it seems the only way we can accomplish is by coming together and stop allowing ourselves to fall for this divide and conquer tactic. Because the reality is we aren't the minority. We're not the minority. But I understand, when you look at what happened during slavery and Jim Crow and today, the tactics, being frightened. That's why my father, he was using shock value when he said, look at how beautiful you are. Look at your skin compared to this. He didn't mean any, thing about, he wasn't trying to hurt white people. He was trying to restore our identity. Because we didn't know anything about us that was great. Everything about us for so long was bad. That's what we were told. And we instilled it in our children because we didn't want our children, to be too uppity that they were going to get, you're too uppity, you get lynched, you get, so many things. So now we need to just come together.
Let's do it. Yeah. All right.
Look at what the Dahomey, look at what they accomplished. That's real.
Hello everyone, I'm Braden Wilson of the Gary branch of the NAACP, second vice president, and I want to say that it's an honor to have you here today and to hear about the legacy of your dad. And I just want to say, how can we go about helping to support with the books, because this is something coming from Brooklyn, and I know Joy L. Williams, president of the NAACP branch, and our Staten Island branch, he has president spoke highly about your father and being around when he had during the funeral, because he said it was terrible that they assassinated the 3 M's when he talked about Malcolm, Medgar Evans, and Martin Luther King. So I just want to know, how can we go about helping to spread the word for your message today?
Probably like Nike, just do it. Right, because I've won image awards. I've won a lot of scholastic, like a lot of different awards for a lot of my books.
Yes.
And so they are out there, and I just would love to share it however I can.
All right, thank you.
So I appreciate you very much.
Good evening. Thank you so much for being here, and thanks for helping make this happen. My name is Sean Trey Irving. I've been a practicing lawyer for 18 years, so I really appreciated hearing the words about your father and his interest in law. 31 years ago, I watched X by Spike Lee, and that was something I remember because I was only 17 at the time, and I honestly just can't believe that I'm in the same room with you. And so this means so much to me because that was over 30 years ago. I was a Black Studies major in college at Indiana University, Bloomington. And thank you so much for all you've done to put out the correct message about your mother and your father. I want to say how much I appreciate you being here. I got on my IU paraphernalia versus a suit, but tonight I would love to take a picture because I honestly just cannot believe I'm in this moment and this time. Because you can't take anything for granted. Just hearing about you and your family and the history and to be a part of this in my city, a city that's often overlooked, really means a lot. I just want to say thank you so much.
And Rado, I just want to also say something real quick addressing the last question. That's one of the reasons why we struggled so hard and had that campaign for so long to get the street named in honor of her Baba, Malcolm X Drive. Again, so spread that word. When people see that, when you see that for years and years, who is this brother? We're going to study him. We'll read the books from his daughter, from him, about him. There's so many books, so many books. So yes, that's one of the reasons why we need to do that even more. Mayor Hatchet, we got to get rid of Taney Street, and we got to understand why we got to get rid of Taney Street.
That's right.
So,
thank you, brother. Buddha said 3 things cannot be hidden for long: the moon, the sun, and the truth. And Papa and I, my brother Trent, AG, and I was having a powwow in his living room 22 years ago. And so we said, what do we want to give Gary that's going to be permanent long after we are gone? And we said, we're going to come up with a street called Malcolm X Drive. So, Brother Papa grew up in California, in some parts of Louisiana. He said, that's a no-brainer. I said, it's going to be a struggle in the Jeep. But like they say in Africa, water finds its way. Water finds its way. Dr. Shabazz, I want to begin by thanking you for, first of all, highlighting your dad, but also highlighting your mother. We often get confused when we think behind every great man is a great woman, but beside every great man is a greater woman. In Vietnam, they say when a man and a woman live together in harmony, they can drive an ocean without a bucket. I'm going to sit down and I'm going to get to my questions, Doc. But personally speaking, I just have to get personal. My mother was pregnant with me when your dad was assassinated. I wasn't born until September of 1965. But next to Jesus the Christ, and may peace and blessing be upon his name, no one has influenced me more than your daddy. No one. And I say that to say that we often get confused and we think as human beings, we have a spirit. We don't have a spirit, rather we are a spirit with a body attached for a time. And Malcolm X's spirit is all throughout this building. I'm gonna get to my question, but Malcolm X went into prison not wearing glasses. He came out of prison wearing glasses. He said 10 guards and the prison warden could drag him out of those books. Readers are leaders. If we're gonna lead like Malcolm, we gotta read like Malcolm. Besides the books that you've written and the books that your daddy wrote, give me 3 books, Doc, that you would recommend us as we leave here tonight to read. Because it was in your daddy's book. He said how, you'll be surprised how one book could change a man's life.
That's right.
Thank
That was great. Thank you so much for that. In the awakening of Malcolm X, I have my father's book list, but I think, let's see, what is it? I think 12 Years a Slave by Solomon Northup is really, an eye-opener, as is, oh goodness, it just left my mind, as is, there's so many, goodness. What's his name? The Sheikh Anta Diop, extremely important.
Civilization of Barbarism?
Yes. No, not barbarism. Not
Black Africa? That one, the small one?
Yes.
Or Chancellor Williams?
Yeah. Chancellor Williams, the destruction of black civilization. That was the third one. But Sheikh Anta Diop, he has just a whole bunch of, a series of documentaries that are on YouTube. I've watched them over and over.
Hotel, Dr. Shabazz. I am Mansan Kulubali out of Chirac, Illinois. And I just want to veggie back on what our brother just said. I mean, all that he said. Your father.
Wait. Veggie back, as in, so you don't say piggyback?
No.
Okay. I like that. I've never heard veggie back. Okay.
And I appreciate your presentation. Well said. I mean, awesome. And your family has definitely made a sacrifice for us, the African world and the world. And he impacted me when I was about 18 or 19. I'm 71 now. And we taught some of the children the following point, or chants. Malcolm X, a strong black man, spoke powerful words throughout this land, told us not to take no stuff. Malcolm X was tough enough. Malcolm X, the excellent black minister, studied our plight, revealed something sinister. And I can go on and on. Brother, this is deep. And I would recommend y'all get Grandcestor, Reverend Dr. James Combs' book.
Yeah.
Malcolm, Martin, and America, Dream or Nightmare. And it's a very good book, and he explains and, kind of reconciles some things. And so I just want to say, sister, I'm so glad that you came, and Brother Kwabena and the whole crew who's responsible for this, and the masses of the people, Asante Sana 1,000 times. Safe travels. And remember that book that I gave you before you got in your car? That's on economics, critique and solutions. That's my gift to you.
Thank you.
Don't lose it.
I want to say one thing also before we close, because I think we have maybe just, Mr. Cameron, you come up to ask the question? Okay.
Okay, there's one person, and then you'll be after, and that'll be it.
I'll be brief, it's not quite a question.
Okay.
But it's a tribute to Malcolm X and what he has meant to my family and my life. The greatest book I've ever read was the autobiography of Malcolm X, written by Alex Haley. The reason why I recommend that book so much is because it is Alex Haley speaking directly to Malcolm X. I have two sons. It was a requirement that they read that book, and they have it this day. And they read it to their children, and it's going to go on and on and on. One of the things I want to say about Malcolm X and how he inspired me in my life, I'm going to say around 16, many years ago, when I read that book, one of the things that I'll never forget is when I read the part when the New York coroner received his body, he said, I have never seen a man so clean on the inside that this man would have lived had the bullets not struck his vital organs. Malcolm X didn't eat anything but eyeballs. As a result of that, I haven't eaten meat in over 40 years. I'm a vegetarian, a vegan this day, and I attribute that to Malcolm X. And I thank you for
I just also want to add that my father did participate in writing this book.
That was mine. Exactly.
Yes.
He was speaking to
Because there are many chapters, he would write chapters and bring them to Alex Haley.
Okay, so
And they would have conversations. My father was a brilliant guy. And so those remember there were chapters that were supposed to be in this book that were removed.
Right.
And we just happened to find those chapters, and they weren't written by Alex Haley, they were written by Malcolm.
So is there an edited version somewhere?
When we think about roots,
Yes.
Malcolm X fingerprints is all over Alex Haley's
That's
roots.
right, that's right, that's right.
Before Mr. Campbell asks this question, I wanted to veggie back on something Brother Manson said, and articulated too. And that's dealing with, he said Chirac. And you know, we talk about the struggle for this drive that we finally have, but I've been in the struggle a little longer than that, and this is about this music. And we mentioned it earlier when we followed up afterwards, but close to 20,000 homicides in the U.S. last year, close to 20,000 a record.
Right.
Nearly 60% of them were African people. Nearly 60% of them, only 12 to 13% of the population. And so I promise that when we go to gatherings or go to places, we have to address that. We will have commemorations, and Bob Law will get on me about this and talk about, you know, we're not going to have no celebrations of February 21st. And we said, no, we had February 21st for a few years, and we should have kept it up as the International Day to end black-on-black violence. And so, but if you have radio stations all around the country playing music and telling your children to kill each other, and that they're NIGGAs, you know, and that they're materialistic morons, and that they should be on dope and disrespecting our women, how do we expect our youth to come up? So we have to address that. So I want, in Gary, we passed a resolution condemning the Ratchet Killer radio stations. They did the same thing in Delaware, and there is a resolution pending in the New York City Council introduced by Inez Barron like 3 years ago. It's just sitting there. So we need support in getting that resolution heard in the biggest city, the largest city in the U.S., and so maybe it can fall back from there, or spread around from there, because we have to do something about this indoctrination of the minds of the masses of our people. And we often use the 1962 rap that your father gave in Los Angeles after our brother Ronald Stokes was killed. And he talked about the press and the media and its impact on the people. It's the same thing happening today. So we have to address this music piece. And just if you have any thoughts on that, I would like to hear that.
You know, C. Dolores Tucker.
Yes.
And Reverend Calvin Butts, they were confronting, they were on Arsenio Hall back in the day,
Right.
when this music was changing, because they saw how powerful hip hop was. And you can Google the meeting of black executives, you know, who they used to give record deals, and the record deals were glorifying a life that wasn't even real, but it was about the shoot 'em up, drugs, money, and all the gold around their necks. And then they discovered that that wasn't their lives, that when the video ended, they had to give the chains back, you know? And so C. Dolores Tucker and Calvin Butts, they fought to prevent this corruption of our music, of hip hop music. And unfortunately, we didn't support them.
Right.
Because if we were united, we would have supported them, and we would have prevented this from happening. Because now when we look at hip hop music, it's not the same that it was 25 years ago. So.
Right on.
All right.
Assalamu alaikum, peace be unto you. Your dad, El-Haj Malik, Shabazz, made a statement while I was young, and listening to his speeches. Everything has its appointed time, and he dealt with time. He said, time is what you do with it. He believed in the amount of, if you're here for 5 years, if you do 10 years worth of work, it's good. Dr. Martin Luther King was saying, time is a distance traveled. So I can deal with both of them. And what she, and And your father said everything is written, but the ink isn't dry. And that's in the Quran. Your dad spoke about wisdom, and he would talk about the prophets, all of them, from Abraham all the way to Prophet Muhammad. Peace and blessings be on all the prophets. And how has that affected your life? Thank you.
Well, I mean, everything I do is about, God and my ancestors. I believe in God, hence the oneness of humanity, and I believe that whatever I want to manifest, that it's all on me.
And Mr. Campbell, I have to share this because today is also the anniversary of the founding of the Black Panther Party in Oakland. And Mr. Campbell was a member of the Chicago chapter of the Black Panther Party. And again, they would say they were the sons of Malcolm. Sister Phyllis and Rainbow too, so salute you brothers, salute our warrior brothers again, who got their inspiration from your Bible also.
Hi, my name is Ariana. I'm here with my mother, Carmita, back there. I've been raking my brain on what to ask you because I just would beat myself up if I missed this opportunity. But being here with my mother today and thinking of how much of an influence she's been on my life, and only the Lord knows where I would be without her, and how much you speak about your parents up here and how much of an influence they've been on you. Because I know my mother's been raising me from my first day, she'll be raising me to my last day. And I just want to know, what lessons have you learned from your parents, and even along the way going into young adulthood? Because I'm 23 and I'm still struggling, and I'll be struggling for forever. And I just want to know, what have you learned and what lessons have you taken into being who you are today?
You won't be struggling forever. You don't want to speak that into existence. I said so much about my mother and my father. I think the most important that I got from them was self-love, because really, if I never knew, I can't imagine growing up and not loving who I am. I think that was the greatest gift they gave me.
All right.
If I did not love me, I could not be here. I could not love you. And we are a reflection of one another. And so in order for me to be a healthy person and continue to develop holistically in my journey, I have to have that self-love. It's so important. You only get self-love when you know who you are as a Black woman, and everything else that is a part of your identity.
Thank you so much.
Okay, we're gonna take our last, just a second. If everyone can, we can continue with the formalities and line up right here, because everyone's jumping in, and that was actually our last one. So we'll take the last 5 people. You guys please line up, and that's the end. That is the end. Because I had something to say too. Y'all taking mine. Keep mine in.
Hi, how's everybody? How are you? You talked about self-love. I didn't start really genuinely loving myself until I was late in my 30s. And I'm an educator, middle school. And I attempt to teach the students about self-love and get them motivated about wanting to learn about the culture and the history of our people. What advice or suggestions could you give educators of young people, to get them motivated, even their parents, the community, because it is a struggle, and they don't seem to care. And I know that if they learn something specific or hear something specific, maybe a few of them, something will change. So what can you suggest?
I think that your environment where you want to stimulate the learning environment with pictures of different leaders, some women, some young girls, some boys, whether they're learning how to count or learning history or learning whatever it is they're learning, it should be a reflection, the image should be a reflection of themselves, I think. That was what I did for the City University, and that's what I do with my boys.
Can I add a little tidbit to that?
Yes.
Just a little bit. Where'd she go? Okay, because I used to be a former educator, and I seen a couple of my students out there, and when you asked the question, they look dead in my face because I do have a plan, and my plan is to use a dictionary, because a dictionary has all the answers. How to sound, how to pronounce. dictionary. It's amazing what you find in that book. So that's the best thing I can tell you. I used it in every class. I had probably little discipline problems because even the ones that were skipping school, they started to come to school because they found out that I could teach them how to learn, and they wanted some of that. They really did. They really did. So they would tell me, hey, Miss Knight, look, I ain't gonna smoke today. I'm coming to your class. Like they were doing me a favor, but I told them, you're not actually doing me a favor. So you let them know, give that responsibility back to themselves that it is your job. I don't care if they're in the first grade, kindergarten. It's your job to learn. It's your job. It's not mama's job. It's not grandma's job. It ain't your sister's job. And it's definitely not the teacher's job. Her job is to aid and assist, to instruct, not to raise. That's all I had.
But I also would add to my sister, it is so important to have images that look like them.
For sure. Oh yeah.
As an educator too, you have to bring them out.
Mm-hmm.
You have to bring them out, no matter how difficult it is to coordinate the rides and everything. They have to be in the room because Mayor Richard Gordon Hatcher, God rest his soul, said, if you're not at the table, you're going to be on the menu.
That's
so
right.
You have to be at the table.
Amen.
I am so elated to be in your presence. Your father's words to me, and I have it written, this whole speech. We want freedom by any means necessary. And when I heard her speak about being fearful, I thought about his speech. We want justice by any means necessary. We want equality by any means necessary. The thing that I would like to impress upon every, he said Afro-American, leader is that no kind of action in this country is ever going to bear fruit unless that action is tied in with the overall international struggle by any means necessary.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, I can't even see your face.
Oh, yeah, no, it's a lot of masks. I did not get over my one bout of COVID. Like, I'm scarred for life now, so it's gonna be this for a long time. I'm a clinical psychologist. I work a lot with trauma, intergenerational trauma. And when I was hearing you speak, so much of what I heard felt like it coalesced into this idea of intergenerational resiliency. You know, but especially when you talk about your own experience. In the family work I do, I find a lot of parents, you know, also have the traumas, the kids, the grandparents. How do we help the parents and the grandparents get to a place where they can love themselves too, so that their kids can learn this? And how do we help people to redirect themselves from kind of like the diversion of materialism in that way? Because I think a lot of times these days, when we talk about self-love, people get confused and they think about something material. You go in a lot of, you know, places of worship, you even hear things that are about material things and material gain. How do we help to shift the focus?
I'm gonna, we talk periodically, but again, that's why we go back to culture. Culture is so important, and we have to have control over our culture. You know, and culture is everything, and that's why we focus a lot on this music and this music piece, and we deal with the children on this. I remember being at a school board meeting one time, and it was a song I was trying to think about to share with the community that was so ratchet and crazy. So I said, the student would know, high school student. So he was sitting next to his mother and I asked him about the song. He didn't know. His mother knew the song. So there's an issue with the parents also. This, like Sister Yasa said, it's been 25 years or so since they've been putting this poison, maybe even a little longer than that, into our people, into our children with this ratchet killer music. And it's just, we have to deal with that on all levels, adult level or youth level. We have to deal with that. So culture is the key. So is that?
That's it. That's it. Thank you everyone for coming. Miss Elyasa, Shabazz, Dr. Shabazz will be outside, signing the books that she does have available. And remember, you can't order the book and it will come signed to you, so that's a blessing. All right, thank you guys for coming.
All right. And let's give a round of applause also to Sister Angel for the work there. And Sister Eugene and Keely in the back also. Without them, this wouldn't happen. So appreciate all of you all.
First man graduate.
Yes, that's right, first man.